hydration. Gotta have the water nearby. Gratitude for your sacred presence. Gratitude for your love. Gratitude for your willingness to co-create with me. All is well in the kingdom of this divine moment. I'm going to offer just a few tones and then set it up as to the way in which we will be co-creating today. Divine Creator, we humble ourselves before the throne of your being and your absoluteness. We gather here in co-creation and co-intending for the sacred purpose of harnessing the full moon and Scorpio energies in a good way. Thank you, Divine Creator, for being the magnetic force that has drew forth all of the beloveds that are presencing with this transmission. We're so honored and grateful, Creator Source, that you are here in sacred presencing with us. We align in divine awareness with the exalted and ascended frequencies of love, of gratitude, of bliss, wisdom, peace, self-love, self-esteem, worthiness. And we lay these elevated frequencies of feeling upon the altar of the Most High. And we receive from the Most High unto the elevated and ascended frequencies of our love, gratitude, bliss, wisdom, peace, self-love, worthiness, self-esteem, generosity, inspiration, sacred magnetism, forgiveness, freedom, innocence, benevolence, abundance. By the grace of you, beloved God Almighty, we now claim the inheritance that you have bestowed upon us, that it is your great pleasure to give us the whole of the kingdom and all that the kingdom produces. And so by virtue of our co-creation and co-intending, we say unto you, beloved God, Goddess, we accept. We accept the victory, we accept the love, we accept the gratitude, we accept the bliss, the peace, the wisdom, the self-love, the worthiness, the self-esteem, the generosity, the inspiration, the victory, and the divine magnetism. We are grateful for this sacred opportunity to co-create and co-intend. Thank you, beloveds, for your being here in this now moment. Just a little while ago, Well, first of all, let me just say that the moon will be exactly full in Scorpio in about, let's see, according to this chart here, this is Eastern Standard Time, 7:48 p.m. So, almost 2 hours from the point of beginning this live. So we're right here at the pinnacle of that energy, this moon in Scorpio. And it was just a little while ago that I decoded the magnitude of what we are co-creating and co-intending for. When the moon is full, the sun and the moon are in an exact opposition with each other. In this case, the moon is 4 degrees of Scorpio in 18 minutes. And the sun is 4 degrees of Taurus, 18 minutes. So they are exact. Pluto is 2 degrees of Aquarius. Scorpio is fixed water. Taurus is fixed earth. And Aquarius is fixed air. With Pluto in Aquarius squaring this full moon, it brings about some of the greatest intensity that we could possibly experience in a full moon. Just the full moon by itself is tremendously powerful, and that much more so with Pluto squaring. The shadow of Pluto is treachery. The main theme of the full moon or any opposition is relationship. The 7th house of relationship is in oppositional alignment with the 1st house of self. And so what we're working on, beloveds, is the healing of the wound of the treachery of relationships. That's what's up for us right now. There may be many remembrances of treacheries that we wielded upon someone else, or treacheries that we felt coming onto us from others. And particularly treacheries in association with relationships, in association with the masculine and the feminine. We're healing the treachery of relationships and the treachery of the masculine unto the feminine and the feminine unto the masculine. And we know that the masculine and the feminine are 2 facets of one essence. So it's time for that healing to take place. When I go back to the beginning of my life, or in the early stages of my life, I think of my teenage years, specifically the age of 16, when Mama threw me out of the house and I took to the streets in the treacherous ghettos of Chicago, where all of my role models were pimps and hoes and gangsters and thieves and con men and con women. And for 6 years I was a part of that treachery from 16 to 22. It wasn't until I was 19 that I even learned how to maintain my well-being. I lived on the streets for 3 years. And during that time I grew to have a hatred toward my mother. And of course, my mother was the first key presence of the feminine in my life. Fortunate for me that when I turned 22 and got on my spiritual path, the love vibration came in, and I had nothing but big love for my mother from that point. But I did know during those times the treachery of having hatred toward my mother, having hatred toward the feminine. And I feel that this is an opportunity for me to heal to an even greater extent any of the shadow energies that I am yet carrying regarding the feminine, any of the unkindnesses, any of the dishonoring of the feminine, any of the crossing of the boundaries of the feminine, of woman. This is a wonderful opportunity for myself and for all men who have experienced being treacherous toward the feminine, to heal that, to atone for that. I atone for that. I offer the sacred apology. I give the sacred apology to women, to the divine feminine, even unto the feminine inside of my own self. I say to the divine feminine, forgive me and forgive all men for any of the treachery, any of the unkindnesses, any of the wounds that we have inflicted. And divine Creator, gratitude to you for facilitating this healing moment. And I invite all women to heal any of the woundedness that you may have inflicted upon the masculine. It is time that the masculine and the feminine come home to one another, because the masculine and the feminine is at home within one another. And I offer these tones to further facilitate this healing that is co-intended and being co-created. Divine Creator, thank you for presencing with us. Thank you for giving us the presence of mind and heart to open in expanded receivership, to receive the elevated console of every elevated and elder version of ourselves, from the fifth dimension and beyond, realms of ascension and beyond. The all-dimensionality of who we are, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th dimensional resonance of being. We open to the wise counsel of you, our elevated versions of self. Every version of ourselves that knows the pristine resonance of innocence. Teach us elevated versions of self, the ways of supreme innocence. Teach us the ways of supreme love, supreme forgiveness. Teach us the ways of supreme compassion. And elevate our appreciation for those versions of ourselves that has never stood in the resonance of any violation, right alongside our three-dimensional reality of having versions of ourselves that has engaged in violations and treachery and hatred and all sorts of negativity. We're so honored and grateful to know that we have other dimensional versions of ourselves that has never engaged in these lower frequencies. And we open to these elevated versions of who we are. We open to the divine frequency of God, Goddess Almighty, in order to come home to ourselves. We allow ourselves to be as a portal for the transmission of the frequencies of forgiveness, transmission of the frequencies of compassion, of innocence. And by the grace of God, Goddess Almighty, we raise the vibration of three-dimensional treachery, of three-dimensional darkness, of the male unto the female, three-dimensional darkness of the human unto the animal, three-dimensional darkness of the adult unto the child. Utilize this opportunity of the sacred alchemy that is the elevated frequency available through Scorpio as well as Pluto. The alchemy of transforming darkness into light, pain into bliss, shadows into benevolence, and all things lesser into something so much greater. Thank you, beloveds, for aligning with me in this now moment. Thank you for remembering who you are. Align with me in divine awareness of all of those versions of who we are that lives and resonates above and beyond any of our lower human frequencies. All of these elder versions of ourselves carry our identical DNA. We bless the darkness to make it right. Reverse the tide and free the light. Recognize with me, beloved, that pain is an angel in distress. Treachery, an angel in distress. Looking at this astrological chart and seeing the would-be woundedness, pain that could happen between the masculine and the feminine. And realizing that in going to the central core, we find the place where only light dwells. And so we go to the central core of the frequency of relationship, where only light dwells. We align in divine awareness with the wisdom of relationship that says we come together to reveal one another to each other. It says when another circles into our lives, they become a mirrored reflection of some intimate aspect of our inner self, and that we are able to come into greater intimacy with that inner aspect of ourselves by virtue of the mirroring that is offered through relationship. Join with me, beloved, in championing relationship, in recognizing that relationship is one of our superpowers, because without relationship, we could never fully decode and decipher our own selfhood. We require the multitudinous mirrored reflections of who we are by virtue of the all-inclusiveness of every being in the universe and every being in the multiverse. We recognize that the frequency of Scorpio is also tied to universal values and universal assets. One of the benevolent aspects of Scorpio is it represents all of the abundance that is, was, or ever will be. All of the abundance that belongs to the collective. As Taurus, who is opposite Scorpio, represents the personal abundance, the second house of the zodiac. And so we tap into the universal abundance frequency of Scorpio. And relative to those of us who have felt that we've been in a place of lack, time now to define our abundance, not just by the exclusiveness of what we individually hold in abundance, but recognizing that what it takes to define any of our essence of abundance is abundance absolute. Thank you, Divine Creator, for giving us the presence of mind and heart to know and remember that we live as a cellular counterpart in the inner sanctum of every abundant being. We live as a cellular counterpart in the inner sanctum of every loving being, every wise being, every compassionate being, every peaceful being, every being that lives in the resonance of the sacred brotherhood and sisterhood. By virtue of the God essence within us, we align in divine awareness with the oneness of the wholeness that we are, which is infinite, eternal, omnipresent, all-dimensional, omnipotent, omniscient. And we lay the oneness of the wholeness that we are upon the altar of the Most High. And we receive from the Most High unto the oneness of the wholeness that we are, the blessing, the anointing, the baptism, and the quickening. The oneness of the wholeness that we are is clear, activated, fully expressed, and eternally expanding in ascension through the fifth dimension and beyond. We, as our resonance of the oneness of the wholeness, are present everywhere and aware every when. We are in the eternal now, ascended oneness of the wholeness of every time, and the infinite here, ascended oneness of the wholeness of every space. We are that we are, ad infinitum. I want to now take a moment to wield the quantum waves, to activate the quantum waves of infinite possibility that reflect our supreme victories, that reflect our supreme love, that reflect our resonance with absolute brotherhood and sisterhood, a reflection of our inner divinity. Align with me, beloveds, as we wield the quantum waves of forgiveness, of innocence, and divine awareness, that even in moments when we engaged in treachery, simultaneously, we had multiple versions of ourselves that expressed as shining exemplifications of love, wisdom, benevolence, brotherhood, sisterhood, ascension frequency. We let go of the limited identification of our selfhood as exclusive unto the three-dimensional reality. We honor our three-dimensionality. We honor our bodies in which we are incarnated, while simultaneously honoring and recognizing the all-dimensionality of who we are. That even now, we are the full-on resonance of the ascended master self. We align in divine awareness with that elevated version of our selfhood that is ascended and beyond. That elevated version of ourselves that walks on water, levitates, heals the sick, and raises the dead. For this resonance of our awareness in the realms of ascension knows that there is no such thing as the dead. And our bodies do not fully constitute our aliveness. We recognize that our bodies are vehicles through which we journey on this physical plane to navigate in physicality, to experience through the physical senses. And we honor these bodies while at the same time knowing that we are first and foremost the spirit that rides upon and rides within these bodies. We come home to our elevated awareness and we milk the miracle from this full moon in Scorpio, and we declare and intend and co-create the reality that only that which is most divine, most benevolent, we receive full on the spirit of the forgiveness. We receive the forgiveness of God, Goddess Almighty, and every angel and every ascended master and every exalted resonance of who we are. We transcend the need to pay karma. We transcend the need to evolve or to get from here to there. We recognize by virtue of God's wisdom within us that in time we travel, yet in eternity we are infinitely already there. And so we embrace the already there-ness of our ascended masterhood. We embrace the already there-ness and the already here-ness of our supreme fulfillment in relationship and all of our relations. Even now, in this now moment, we receive all of the benevolence that the universe and the multiverse could possibly offer in the domain of relationship. We align in divine awareness that every being, every pair of beings, every couple in the multiverse, in the universe that are fulfilled in relationships are a representation of our own relationship fulfillment by extension. And we own it. We link up the telepathic battery cables, our heart minds, to all of the heart minds of those who are divinely fulfilled in delicious relationship. We are the oneness of the wholeness of relationship fulfillment. Because every reality that exists within the whole of the universe is recorded in the cellular living library of each and every one of us. Every delicious relationship, every experience of abundance, every ascension, recorded in the cellular matrix of each and every one of us. And we rise above three-dimensional limitations. No more renting with option to buy. We own the glory of our souls, the glory of our beings. And we live and stand in the presence of mind and heart to give a counterpart of this to any of our younger brothers and sisters that might be hanging out in fear. We honor your right, little brother, little sister, to be afraid. And yet we look larger. We see the version of you that completely transcends all fear. And we deposit in the soul bank, in your soul bank, the elevated versions of you that has transcended all fear. We deposit in your soul bank the elevated version of you that is ascended master, that is angel, that is cosmic being, that is a shining representation of God, Goddess Almighty. We see this for you, little brother, little sister. And we recognize that you are also our own self. And as we speak to the little brother and the little sister, we recognize that we're also speaking unto our own self during times when we were of that level. We are everywhere and every when, all at once. We are in the eternal now ascension of every time. And the infinite here, ascension of every space. We are that we are, ad infinitum. I tone the song of our victory. I tone the song of our ascension. I tone the song of our fruition and fulfillment in love relationships and with all our relations. I tone the song of our abundance. I tone the song of our benevolent world, aligning in divine awareness with fifth dimensional earth. I invoke, decree, and dream awake the full cellular ascension of my being, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, in this now. With the full support of God, Goddess, the Ascended Master Realm, to include our Ascended Master Self, Father Saint Germain Sananda, the Holy Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, Goddess of Mercy, Archangel Michael and the legions, Ashtar and the entire command, Babaji, Raphael, Gabriel, clan of the trumpet angels, aboriginal and tribal shaman, goddesses of fortune, angels of light, Elohim, clan of the serpents, Shiva, all Christ frequencies, all animal totems, elementals of fire, air, water, and earth, all divine beings of light, love, and ascension, named and unnamed, to activate the cells within my being who are your counterparts. With the unified power of the One, I decree my highest good always operating in this now. I decree grace and mercy always operating in this now. I invoke, decree, and dream awake the full truth and reality of ascension in this now. I invoke and dream awake with every breath that I breathe the violet fire transmuting my whole being. I invoke and dream awake the full current of ascension in every cell of my being. I am ascended. I invoke and dream awake expanded God consciousness fully realized in me as unlimited abundance, fulfilling my every need and desire. I invoke and dream awake the ending of procrastination, tiredness, blockages, obstacles, and unhealthy belief systems. I decree immediate abundance in my life. I invoke and dream awake my liberation from all karmic debt. I am infinite opulence. I invoke and dream awake my personal empowerment in every instant that anyone is impacted by my being and creations. I invoke and dream awake the infinite empowerment of my sexual, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and financial relationship with life. I invoke and dream awake sacred sexuality, erotic innocence, and always express the sacredness of sexual force for pleasure, creativity, and healing. I invoke and dream awake world universal healing from all sexual woundedness and shame. I invoke and dream awake worldwide release of all manipulating forces and beings who would control humanity past, present, and future. I invoke the angels and ascended masters to realign and heal all misused energy, to include the full restructuring of our DNA. I invoke and dream awake the transmutation of all negative and judgmental projections. I invoke and dream awake my constant ability to be centered and balanced in my psychic perceptions and empathic nature. All adverse psychic energies are released by me automatically, easily, effortlessly. I am empowered by everything. I invoke and dream awake my lucid dreaming each night I sleep and total remembering when I awake. I invoke and dream awake my infinite harmony with God, Goddess I am. I invoke and dream awake the full expression of my miraculous healing power. My life is a continuous stream of miracles. I invoke and dream awake my infinite ability and willingness to receive all life's blessings. I invoke and dream awake a constant attitude of gratitude for my whole life, all my accomplishments and blessings, including the same for the universe at large. I invoke and dream awake the full blessings of God, Goddess, the ascended masters, angels, guides, and beings of light to bless this earth. I invoke and dream awake all my decrees, invocations, and prayers I have released to the universe, and open myself to God's response, support, and love in my highest good. I invoke and dream awake the release of all past, present, and future lifetimes of decrees and vows which would bind this earth plane in fear. I invoke and dream awake the influence of the Ascended Master Realm and angels to intercede, the full reclaiming of my eternal self as powerful, loving, and fully aligned in abundant God consciousness. I invoke and dream awake the total dissolving of all manipulating forces which would bind this earth plane in fear. I invoke and dream awake the influence of the Ascended Master Realm and angels to intercede and raise the vibrations higher to bring darkness into the light, raising the frequency of love and God consciousness on planet Earth in this now. I invoke and dream awake the ascension of my soul, your soul, and planet Earth in this now. Gratitude, beloved Creator. Gratitude, beloved angels. So grateful for this now moment of blessings. We come home to the full-on benevolence of our soul and our soul's adventure. All is well in the kingdom of this now. Oh, my goddess. Oh, my God. Brothers and sisters, what wonderful co-creation we are engaging in together. Thank you for your co-creation, and thank you for your co-intending. Thank you for your co-love and your co-peace, your co-benevolence. I'm so grateful to Creator Source for that download. What an amazing download that was, that is. And I want you to take a moment and just love on yourself. Take a moment and celebrate yourself for the amazing love that you have for you, that has co-created and co-intended into this now moment and this now transmission. I want you to feel, each and every individual, beloved, that this now moment and this now transmission could not be precisely what it is without your co-creative hand, heart, and mind in it. If you were missing, it would have to be different. That it is only precisely what it is by virtue of your co-creative hand and heart and mind in it. Isn't it wonderful that you love yourself that much? Take a moment, beloved, and really own that. Really feel that. Really allow the truth of that to raise you up in elevation, in your self-esteem, all the way through the roof of the cosmos. Just a couple more items regarding this full moon chart. In this chart, Venus and Chiron are very closely conjunct in Aries. And Venus in Aries is when the feminine allows the inner masculine to become dominant. Venus portaling through Aries is, or can be, a shadow male expression. And so we send out the healing resonance unto all of our sisters that may be overly identified with your inner masculine because you didn't feel you could count on the male energy externally. And so you internally allowed your inner masculine to come forward and to begin to dominate. And the inner masculine then began to push the inner feminine off of the central throne. We want to bring it all back into sacred equality. And so we send forth the healing. Chiron is the planet of the wounded healer. And so the fact that Venus is conjunct Chiron in Aries is an indication that there is a readiness for the healing. And not just relative to women that have been over-identified with the masculine, but men, when we are overly identified with the masculine and we push the feminine out, then we're lopsided. by the grace of God, we stand in the resonance and co-intend and co-create the resonance of the sacred equality between the masculine and the feminine. That we as men would also learn how to cry with great dignity in the knowingness that there's no weaknesses there. I'm so grateful when I found my tears again and I could cry with dignity. And I did so among a large group of people, most of whom I just met. For the first time, I cried those tears with absolute dignity. I knew that it wasn't weakness. I knew that it was strength because I was being true to the reality of that moment. And I invite my brothers to recognize that a great measure of the strength of your manhood is based upon alignment with your inner feminine and the vulnerability and being able to cry. When I cry, I take a tear from each cheek, and I always taste my tears as a declaration of my acceptance of what I'm feeling. But also, when you ingest your tears, you understand more fully what you're feeling in that now moment, because tears are coded with information. So always taste those tears. Isn't it wonderful that we are co-creating this now moment? Even when there's so many possibilities of shadow energies associated with this full moon in Scorpio being squared by Pluto. But we are, by benevolent intention, shifting the dial of our awareness to the broadcast reality that we want. Because God designed us to be able to create what it is that we want. We don't have to be assaulted by negativity. If we're afraid of it, our fear is inviting it. Fear is a powerful creator, and fear is a powerful affirmation. So let us stop affirming through fear the things that we don't want. Coming home to ourselves. And so we send forth that healing vibration to Venus conjunct Chiron, for the healing of the wound of independence to a fault. Because that woundedness there, whether it be male or female, is a representation of the shadow of independence to a fault. Many of us are that, especially men, and many women too, who have become over-identified with their inner masculine. And when we're independent to a fault, we become a magnet for attracting legions and legions of people who are dependent to a fault. Legions of people with the needy greedies. And that's our higher self seeking to get our attention and let us know that we need to step into receivership and allow support to come unto us. To receive is to give, because when we receive, we give the other the opportunity to give. And when we are unwilling to receive, we become an unconscious taker, because now we're taking from the other the opportunity to give. So let us stand sacredly in the divine receivership, and in the recognition that receivership and givership are equal partners in co-creation. Know that even in this transmission, I may be the vessel through whom the transmission is pouring forth. And yet it couldn't happen without your receivership. Your receivership and my givership are equal partners in co-creation. That's beautiful to know. Sometimes we've given to people that didn't reciprocate, and sometimes we feel like we wasted our blessings on them. But you can never waste your blessings on God. And even when you give to an individual, by extension, you are giving unto God through that individual, because all giving is all-inclusive rather than exclusive. Remember that. Even if they didn't reciprocate, be of the wisdom and the awareness that God always reciprocates, as long as we don't go into resenting because the individual that we gave to did not reciprocate. I don't care if they don't reciprocate, because I know that my giving didn't stop with them, that my giving was all inclusive unto the whole universe, unto God Almighty. And God always appreciates my giving and will always reciprocate the blessing back unto me and back unto you. And so aligning with this wisdom and not getting bent out of shape when someone doesn't hear you, and me not getting bent out of shape when someone doesn't hear me, because all communications are all inclusive, not exclusive. Even if they didn't hear you, there may be 10,000 others in the universe ripe and ready for that very same truth that you shared with that individual, that are quickened by what you share, and then you receive the royalties from having shared. And it's not our business when it is landed or accepted by the person that we're sharing with. Our business is to share what we share, and it's their business when they choose to receive it. And if what we're sharing is authentic, in due course of eternity, it's always received, even by that person that was in severe resistance of it in that particular now moment. Down the course of eternity, they are in shining receivership of that energy. And so sometimes the truth that we share is time released, like a time released medicine. They take the medicine now and it kicks in later. So I'm going to bring in some of the frequency of the didgeridoo. It feels really important to bring that frequency in to help facilitate in this transmission and the transformation of the frequencies, and to ensure that these frequencies are servant unto us and definitely not master over us. Pause this music here. We offer this didgeridoo frequency as a healing unto ourselves, as well as every being in the whole of the multiverse. Lord has had mercy. Oh my goddess. It's good for me. And I'm sure good for you as well. So gratitude for co-creating with me. Some of you may have saw a video that I shot earlier today that was prayer transmission, full moon prayer transmission. And you saw water in the background, which is right here on the property where I live, just a couple-minute walk, and I'm right on the dock by the lake. And one of the things that happened earlier was so powerful is that right after shooting those videos, because I shot a live for Instagram, followed by a live for Facebook, and then another live for YouTube. And when I finished the live with YouTube, I looked out into the water, and first I saw one alligator. And I always feel honored when I see them. I hear them all the time. They have a specific sound. So every day, every night, especially at night, they're more vocal at night. I hear them. And in the time that I've lived here, 1.5 years, I've seen, prior to today, maybe 3 of them. But today I saw 2 at once. And that was really profoundly powerful, because first I saw the first one, and then the next thing I knew, there was a second one that was coming, looking like it was coming toward and going to actually greet that one. But what actually happened is they just very slowly swam right past each other in that way. And it was so characteristic for me of that resonance of the full moon energy, and the resonance of the all-directional reality of who we are, that we are all dimensional, we are all directional, we have the capacity to move forward and backward at the same time. You know, we can reflect on something that happened in the past and can bring up as much emotional frequency about it in this now moment as maybe we felt in the past. And we have the capacity to pre-memorate the future. There's also a symbolism in the alligator of great fertility and creation. You know, they lay anywhere from 20 to 60 eggs at one time. And there's a great mothering energy there, because the young ones begin to vocalize when they're still inside of the egg, and then mama helps them get out of the egg, and then once they're out, carries them down to the water. The other thing is that the alligator represents stillness in flow motion. Stillness in flow motion. Or stillness in slow motion. So there's never anything that is not without some measure of motion. Even the greatest measure of stillness is also in alignment with the eternal expansion of the universe. Stillness in flow motion. And so it ties into our experience of this full moon to come into that stillness in flow motion. That stillness relating to being full on in the presence. When we're fully in the presence, we become the present as a gift unto others, and we receive the present as the gift from others unto ourselves. We receive the present when we are in the sacred present moment. And the alligator teaches about presencing. In that stealth, they just sometimes are there until their prey shows up. So it's like they're magnetic to attract their prey onto them. And then when the prey comes right into their own sphere, then they grasp that prey. Symbolic of our capacity to be in the receivership and the magnetism to attract all of our future blessings onto us. Where we don't have to pine after our future, because when we're in the right resonance of presence, our future seeks us out. All is well in the kingdom of this divine moment. Astarius Miraculii transmission complete. Be sure and go to my website, astarius.com, astarius.com. Several songs have been playing in the background here from different albums. From the album Deep Space Meditation, Vibrational Healing, Ascension Current, Abraham Primordial Heart, and Fly My Winged Love. And the first song that I was playing is Tribal Harmonics from my album Tribal Spirit Rap. So go over there and get yourself some music. If you love what it is that I transmit, then you'll go even deeper by virtue of having relationship with my music. And I have a couple of books as well. I'm available for intuitive astrological readings, Reiki trainings, and I transmit Reiki in my personal frequencies. So, and also if you want to inquire even more personally, go to my website. You can find a phone number there, and we can have a more direct connection to determine what's a good fit to move forward in co-creation. I love you so much, and I feel so good about this resonance, this energy of this full moon in Scorpio. And I feel so confident that we're going to extract all of the goodness and that we're going to milk the miracle out of it. So I'm thanking you in advance for not hanging out in fear, for being in the full-on resonance of your courage, and for letting this full moon frequency in Scorpio know what you want from it, because it is not indifferent from your own self. The full moon in Scorpio is the part of ourselves that is the full moon in Scorpio. Because every resonance that we encounter in the external sense lives first and foremost in the recesses of our own being. Because we have a cellular counterpart within us for every being in all existence, for every reality in all existence, for every circumstance in all existence, for every possibility. We are the microcosmic container of the macrocosmic quantum field and the mind of God. And that's pretty wonderful. I love you so much, beloved. Give yourself a big hug from me.